Hello, my good friends. How are you today? May God bless you all. I will not introduce anything. You guys watch the video and feel it, then let's evaluate together. The rain came down in sheets, hammering the roof of the tiny wooden cabin like it was trying to drown the world. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of damp wood and the faint crackle of a fire I'd managed to coax to life in the rusty fireplace. My clothes clung to me, heavy and cold, and my hair, God, my hair, was a mess of curls plastered to my face, no longer tamed by the hours I'd spent straightening it that morning. Across from me, Ethan Caldwell sat on the floor, his own shirt soaked through, dark hair dripping as he stared into the flames. The man was a billionaire, the CEO of Caldwell Innovations, but right now, he looked like any other guy caught in a Georgia storm, tired, human, and maybe a little lost. We'd been stuck here for hours, ever since our rental car gave up on a back road during a work trip to meet a client. The storm had rolled in fast, turning the world gray and forcing us to seek shelter in this abandoned cabin. I should have been panicking about the presentation we were supposed to give, or the fact that my phone had no signal. But all I could focus on was the way Ethan's eyes caught the firelight, deep and searching, like he was seeing something I couldn't. "You don't have to stay so far away," he said, his voice low, cutting through the rhythm of the rain. He nodded toward the fire. "It's warmer over here." I swallowed, my heart doing a little flip that I wished I could ignore. "I'm fine," I lied, tugging my wet blazer tighter around me. But the chill was creeping into my bones, and the fire looked too damn inviting. I shuffled closer, keeping a careful distance, my knees brushing the rough floorboards. He didn't say anything for a while, just poked at the fire with a stick, sending sparks dancing upward. Then, out of nowhere, he started talking, really talking. "My mom used to love storms," he said, his voice softer now, almost like he was speaking to himself. "She'd sit on our porch in Mobile, watching the lightning, saying it reminded her the world was bigger than our problems. She was a fighter, you know, worked 3 jobs, never complained, but she never got the chance to shine the way she deserved." I watched him, the way his jaw tightened, the way his fingers gripped the stick a little too hard. Ethan Caldwell, the elusive billionaire whose face was on Forbes, but whose life was a locked vault, was opening up to me. Me, Maya Thompson, a nobody from a speck-on-the-map town in Alabama. I didn't know what to say, so I just listened, feeling the weight of his words settle between us. "She was black, like you," he added, glancing at me, his eyes holding mine for a beat too long. "Strongest woman I ever knew. When I saw you that first day, presenting your ideas with that fire in your eyes, it reminded me of her." My breath caught. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. There was something raw in his gaze, something that made my skin prickle and my pulse race. "Ethan," I started, but my voice faltered. What was I supposed to say? That I'd spent months wondering why he kept showing up in my life, why my ideas kept getting noticed, why I felt him watching me in meetings, that I was terrified of whatever this was between us. Before I could find the words, he leaned closer, just enough for me to feel the warmth radiating from him. "Maya, I've seen you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not just your work, but you. The way you fight for what you believe in, the way you don't let anyone dim your light. I've been trying to stay out of your way, but I can't anymore." The air felt electric, like the lightning outside had slipped into the room. My hands trembled, and without thinking, I reached out, my fingers brushing his. It was a small touch, but it lit me up inside, like a spark catching dry tinder. His hand closed over mine, warm and steady, and for a moment, the world was just us, 2 people in a storm, holding on to something neither of us could name. I don't know who moved first, but suddenly we were closer, his arm around me, pulling me into the warmth of his chest. I could feel his heartbeat, fast and uneven, mirroring mine. His breath grazed my cheek, and I tilted my head. Our lips so close, I could taste the promise of a kiss. My body screamed to close the gap, to let go, to let this man, who saw me in ways I didn't even see myself, crash into my carefully guarded world. But fear clawed at me, sharp and cold. He was my boss, a billionaire with a life I couldn't begin to understand. I was just a black girl from Alabama, scraping by, fighting for every inch of my place in this world. What if this was a mistake? What if I let myself fall and lost everything I'd worked for? "I'm scared," I whispered, my voice shaking. "If I let myself love you, I don't know if I can come back from it." Ethan's eyes softened, but he didn't pull away. "Then we'll take it slow," he said, his thumb brushing my knuckles. "As slow as you need. I'm not going anywhere." We stayed like that, wrapped in each other, the fire crackling and the rain pounding, until the storm began to ease. I didn't know what was coming next, but I knew one thing. Ethan Caldwell had seen me, truly seen me, and that changed everything. Let me take you back to where it all started, because trust me, I never saw this coming. My name's Maya Thompson, and up until that night in the storm, I was just another ambitious woman trying to make it in a world that didn't always make room for me. I grew up in a small town in Alabama, raised by my Granny Ruth, who used to say, "Maya, you gotta work twice as hard to get half as far, but don't you ever let that stop you." She was my rock, a woman who'd marched for civil rights in the 60s and still wore her pride like a crown. I carried her words with me when I left for Atlanta, determined to prove I could be more than my circumstances. My first day at Caldwell Innovations was like stepping into a different universe. The company's headquarters was a gleaming glass tower in downtown Atlanta, all sharp angles and polished marble. I walked in wearing a suit I'd saved up for months to buy, my hair straightened to within an inch of its life, and a portfolio I'd spent weeks perfecting. I was terrified, no lie. A black woman from a no-name college, with student loans that haunted my dreams and a chip on my shoulder the size of Georgia. The receptionist gave me a once-over, her lips pursing like I'd wandered into the wrong building. I almost believed her. I started as a junior analyst in the marketing department, tucked away in a cubicle so small I could touch both walls without standing up. But I treated that space like it was the corner office. I'd show up an hour early, stay 2 hours late, poring over market trends while my coworkers hit happy hour. Granny Ruth didn't raise me to be ordinary. 2 months in, I submitted a proposal for a campaign targeting first-generation college grads, folks like me who'd clawed their way up with no safety net. I figured it'd get buried in someone's inbox, but I poured my heart into it anyway. That's when I met Ethan Caldwell. It was late, the office empty except for the hum of the janitor's vacuum down the hall. I was hunched over my computer, lost in spreadsheets, when a shadow fell across my screen. I looked up, and there he was, Ethan, the CEO, the man whose name was synonymous with innovation and wealth. He wasn't what I expected. No flashy suit, just dark jeans and a button-down with the sleeves rolled up. His eyes were tired but kind, like he'd seen too much but still hoped for better. "You're still here," he said. Not a question, but a statement, his voice deep and quiet. I nearly jumped out of my skin. "Mr. Caldwell, I'm just finishing up," I stammered, scrambling to stand. My chair squeaked and I cringed. He waved a hand like my formality was unnecessary. "The proposal you submitted," he said, leaning against my cubicle wall. "Targeting first-gen graduates with our tech products. It's bold, smart. Why'd you write it?" I blinked, my brain scrambling to catch up. The CEO had read my proposal? I wanted to reach people who don't usually see themselves in our ads," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "People who've had to fight for every opportunity, He nodded, his gaze holding mine like he was seeing right through me. People don't notice what they're not looking for, he said, cryptic as hell, then turned and walked away. I stood there, heart pounding, telling myself it was just a random encounter, that he probably said stuff like that to all the newbies. But deep down, I felt something shift, like a door had cracked open just a sliver. Over the next few weeks, weird things started happening. My ideas got brought up in meetings, like someone was actually reading my emails. My manager, who'd barely acknowledged me before, asked for my input on a big project. A book on marketing strategies appeared on my desk one morning, no note, no explanation. And sometimes, during presentations, I'd feel eyes on me. I'd look up, and there was Ethan, standing at the back of the room, his expression unreadable. Our gazes would lock for a split second, and then he'd be gone, like a ghost. I tried to brush it off. I mean, come on. Why would a billionaire with a penthouse and a private jet give a damn about a junior analyst with discount store shoes and a bus pass? I was Maya Thompson, a girl from Alabama with wild curls I could barely tame, and a dream bigger than my bank account. But the more it happened, the more I wondered. Was I imagining things? Or was someone watching me, seeing me, in a way I'd never been seen before? I remember telling my best friend Jalen Brooks about it over wings at a dive bar in Midtown. Jalen's a nonprofit guy, all about community and keeping it real. He leaned back in the booth, wiping hot sauce off his fingers, and gave me that look, the one that says he's about to drop truth. "Maya, you sure you're not selling your soul to this corporate game?" he asked, his voice half teasing, half serious. "You're out here straightening your hair, working till midnight. Who are you doing it for?" I rolled my eyes, but his words stung. "I'm doing it for me, Jalen," I said, stabbing a fry into some ranch. "For Granny Ruth, for every time someone told me I wasn't enough. I'm gonna make it big and no one's gonna stop me." He raised a brow, unconvinced. "Just make sure you don't lose yourself along the way, eh? You're more than your job." I didn't have a comeback for that. I went home that night, staring out my apartment window at the Atlanta skyline, the lights glittering like promises I wasn't sure I could keep. I thought about Granny Ruth, about the way she'd braid my hair and tell me stories of marching in Selma, about the fire in her eyes when she said I could be anything. I thought about Ethan, about that strange, quiet moment in my cubicle, about the way his voice made me feel seen and unseen all at once. Was I invisible in this glass tower, or was someone out there watching, waiting for me to shine? If you've ever felt like you're fighting to be seen, like you're pouring your heart into something and wondering if anyone notices, then stick with me. This story's for you. Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment about a time you felt truly seen. It could be a friend, a teacher, or even a stranger. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next, because this journey's about to flip everything you think you know about love, ambition, and the quiet people who change our lives. The conference room at Caldwell Innovations was a beast. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a sleek mahogany table, and enough tech to make you feel like you were in a sci-fi flick. I stood at the head of it, my palms sweaty, my heart doing a tap dance in my chest. This was it, my shot to pitch a campaign that could change everything. My proposal, the one I'd poured my soul into, had somehow landed me here, presenting to the company's top brass. And yeah, Ethan Caldwell was in the room, leaning against the back wall, arms crossed, his eyes locked on me like I was the only person in the world. I clicked to my first slide, the screen glowing with data and visuals I'd spent weeks perfecting. "Our target demographic, first-generation college grads, is underserved," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "They're young, ambitious, and tech-savvy, but they don't trust brands that don't see them. This campaign uses authentic storytelling, real people, real struggles, to build that trust and drive engagement by 20% in the first quarter." The room was quiet, but I could feel the energy shift. A few execs nodded, scribbling notes. My manager, Ms. Carter, gave me a tight smile that could have meant anything. I pushed forward, laying out the numbers, the creative concepts, the social media strategy. Every word felt like a step on a tightrope, but I was walking it, damn it. I was Maya Thompson, and I belonged here. When I finished, the room erupted in applause. Not the polite kind, but the kind that makes your chest swell. Ms. Carter stood up, her voice crisp. Maya, that was outstanding. We're greenlighting this campaign, and I want you to lead it. I froze, my brain struggling to process the words. Lead it? Me, a junior analyst with barely 6 months under my belt? I managed a, "Thank you, ma'am," but my eyes flicked to Ethan. He was still in the back, his face unreadable, but he gave me a single nod, like he'd known this was coming. For a split second, our gazes locked, and I felt that same spark from the storm, like a current running through me. Then he slipped out the door, leaving me to soak in the moment. The rest of the day was a blur. Handshakes, congratulations, a stack of new assignments landing on my desk. I should have been over the moon, but as I sat in my cubicle, staring at the Atlanta skyline through the window, a nagging feeling crept in. How had my proposal even reached the execs? I'd sent it to my manager, sure, but she'd never shown much interest in my work before. And why was Ethan there, watching me like he was invested in my every move? I was still wrestling with those questions when Lauren Mitchell sauntered by my cubicle, her heels clicking like a warning shot. Lauren was everything I wasn't. Blonde, polished, with a pedigree that screamed old money. She'd been gunning for the same promotion I was, and from the way her eyes narrowed, she wasn't thrilled about my win. "Nice pitch, Maya," she said, her voice dripping with honey and venom. "Must feel good to get handpicked like that. What's your secret?" I bristled, my fingers tightening around my pen. "No secret," I said, keeping my tone even. "Just hard work." She smirked, leaning against my cubicle wall like she owned the place. "Right, hard work. Funny how some people just get lucky." She didn't wait for a reply, just tossed her hair and walked off, leaving her words hanging in the air like smoke. I tried to shake it off, but her comment burrowed under my skin. By lunch, I overheard whispers in the break room, colleagues murmuring about diversity quotas and special treatment. One guy, some mid-level suit from sales, didn't even bother lowering his voice. "She's good, sure, but come on. You don't go from junior analyst to campaign lead unless someone's pulling strings." My face burned, and I ducked out before anyone could see me. I locked myself in a bathroom stall, gripping the sink, staring at my reflection in the smudged mirror. My straightened hair, my carefully neutral makeup, my budget blazer. They were armor, but they weren't enough to shield me from this. I'd worked my ass off, but all anyone saw was a black girl who didn't deserve her shot. Was Lauren right? Was I just a token? A box checked to make the company look good? I splashed cold water on my face and went back to work, determined to prove them wrong. But the doubt lingered, like a bruise I couldn't ignore. That night, my phone rang as I was heating up leftover mac and cheese in my tiny apartment. It was the hospital in Alabama, and my stomach dropped before the nurse even spoke. Granny Ruth had been admitted with chest pains. They suspected a heart issue, and she needed tests, expensive ones. I sat on my couch, the phone still in my hand, my dinner forgotten. Granny was my everything, the woman who'd raised me when my parents couldn't, who'd taught me to hold my head high no matter what. The thought of losing her was a knife to the gut. I called her, my voice shaking as I tried to sound calm. "Granny, you okay? What did the doctor say?" Her laugh was weak but warm, like always. "Oh, baby, I'm tougher than a $2 steak. Don't you worry about me. Just keep shining up there in that big city." "Granny, I'm coming home," I said, already mentally calculating how much leave I could take. "You need me." "No, ma'am," she shot back, her voice firm. "You got a big job now leading that campaign. You stay put and make me proud. But Maya—" She paused, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "Don't just live for work, you hear? Find someone who makes your heart sing, someone who sees you the way I do." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I'm trying, Granny. I promise." We hung up, and I sat there, staring at the peeling paint on my apartment wall. I wanted to be there for her, but this campaign was my chance to prove I wasn't just lucky. Bah. I felt like I was being torn in two, my dreams pulling me one way, my family another, and somewhere in the middle was Ethan, a puzzle I couldn't solve. The next morning I got an email that stopped me cold. A top cardiologist in Atlanta had an opening to see Granny Ruth, and the hospital's financial office informed me that an anonymous donor had covered her initial tests. I sat at my desk, my coffee going cold, my mind racing. It was too perfect, too convenient. I thought of Ethan, of that nod in the conference room, of the way he seemed to know things about me he shouldn't. Was he behind this? And if he was, why? I didn't have time to dwell on it, because my inbox was blowing up with campaign tasks. I threw myself into work, staying late to tweak ad copy and analyze data. One night, as I was packing up, Tasha Green, Ethan's executive assistant, poked her head into my cubicle. Tasha was a black woman in her 40s, sharp as a tack, with a no-nonsense vibe that reminded me of Granny Ruth. "Girl, you ever sleep?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. I laughed, shutting down my computer. "Not lately. Too much to do." She leaned against my desk, her gold hoop earrings catching the light. Well, you're making waves. That campaign pitch? People are talking, including the boss." I froze, my bag halfway to my shoulder. "Mr. Caldwell?" He said something. Tasha's lips curved into a knowing smile. "Let's just say he notices talent. Always has. You know he funds scholarships for kids in underserved communities? Never puts his name on it, though. Hates the spotlight." I blinked, trying to reconcile the Ethan I knew, the quiet man in jeans, with this image of a secret philanthropist. "Why does he do it?" I asked. "The anonymous stuff?" Tasha shrugged. "Some people help because it's right, not because they want credit. He sees people like you, Maya, people who fight for their place. Sound familiar?" She left me with that, her words echoing in my head as I rode the bus home. I thought about the book on my desk, the proposal that reached the execs, the cardiologist's appointment. Was Ethan pulling strings, clearing obstacles from my path? And if he was, what did he want in return? The campaign launched a month later, and it was a hit. Our ads, featuring real stories from first-gen grads, went viral, and the numbers were better than we'd hoped. Engagement was up 25%, and the client was thrilled. At the wrap-up meeting, the room burst into applause again, and Ms. Carter shook my hand, her smile genuine this time. "You've got a bright future here, Maya," she said. I should have been floating, but as I left the meeting, I felt hollow. I walked to the break room for a coffee, only to hear Lauren's voice, sharp and smug, talking to a coworker. "Sure, she's talented, but let's be real. You don't get a win like that without someone in your corner. Wonder who she's cozying up to." The words hit like a slap. I turned and walked away, my hands shaking. Back at my cubicle, I stared at my reflection in my computer screen. My straightened hair, my pressed blazer, my carefully crafted image. I'd fought so hard to belong, but it wasn't enough. They still saw me as an outsider, a fluke, a girl who didn't earn her place. That night I went home and stood in my bathroom, my fingers hovering over my flat iron. I thought about Granny Ruth, about the way she'd braid my curls and tell me they were my crown. I thought about Jalen, challenging me to stay true to myself. I thought about Ethan, and the way his eyes made me feel like I was more than my doubts. But most of all, I thought about me, about the girl who'd come to Atlanta with a dream, and the woman I was becoming. I put the flat iron down and looked in the mirror, my curls starting to peek through. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. Maybe it was time to fight for more than just a job, to fight for who I was and who I could be. The fluorescent lights in the Caldwell Innovations break room buzzed like a swarm of bees, making my headache worse. I stood by the coffee machine, watching it sputter out a weak stream of decaf, my mind a tangle of worry and frustration. Granny Ruth's tests had come back. She needed surgery, and even with the anonymous donor covering part of the cost, I was staring down a mountain of bills. On top of that, Lauren Mitchell's snide comments were spreading like wildfire, and every sideways glance from a coworker felt like a jab. I'd fought so hard to prove I belonged here, but it was starting to feel like the walls were closing in. I poured my coffee, the bitter smell grounding me, and headed back to my cubicle. My desk was a mess. Stacks of campaign reports, post-it notes with deadlines, and that damn marketing book that had appeared months ago, still sitting there like a taunt. I hadn't figured out who left it, but my gut kept pointing to Ethan Caldwell. The thought of him made my stomach flip, and not just because he was my boss. It was the way he looked at me, like he saw past the polished exterior I'd spent years building. It was thrilling and terrifying, and I didn't know what to do with it. As I sat down, my phone buzzed with a text from Jalen Brooks, my best friend since college. In town for a conference. Meet me at Ruby's Diner tonight. Got some of Granny's cornbread with your name on it. I smiled, despite myself. Jalen always knew how to pull me out of a funk, and the promise of Granny Ruth's cornbread was enough to get me through the day. Work was a grind. I was knee-deep in data for the next phase of the campaign, trying to ignore the whispers around me. Lauren had upped her game, dropping hints in meetings that my ideas were unconventional at best, risky at worst. During a strategy session that afternoon, she leaned back in her chair, her perfectly manicured nails tapping the table, and said, "Maya's approach is creative, but I wonder if we're banking too much on a niche demographic. We need broader appeal." I clenched my jaw, forcing a smile. "The data shows first-gen grads are a growing market," I said, sliding a report across the table. "Our engagement numbers are up because we're speaking to them directly. Broad appeal doesn't mean ignoring specific needs." Ms. Carter nodded, but Lauren's smirk told me she wasn't done. "Sure," she said, her tone syrupy. "I just hope we're not overreaching. Not everyone's ready for that kind of responsibility." The room went quiet, and I felt every pair of eyes on me. My face burned, but I held my ground. "I'm ready," I said, my voice steady, "and the results speak for themselves." Ms. Carter moved the meeting along, but the damage was done. As I gathered my notes, I caught a glimpse of Ethan in the doorway, his expression unreadable. He'd been there the whole time, silent, watching. Our eyes met for a split second, and I swear I saw a flicker of something, pride maybe, or anger on my behalf. Then he was gone, leaving me with a racing pulse and 1,000 questions. Ruby's Diner was a slice of home in the heart of Atlanta. Red vinyl booths, the smell of fried chicken and collards, and a jukebox playing Aretha Franklin. Jalen was already there when I walked in, sprawled in a booth with a plate of cornbread and a grin that could light up the city. He was all lanky limbs and easy charm, his locks pulled back, his t-shirt reading "Stay Woke." Seeing him was like slipping into my favorite hoodie. Comfortable, familiar, safe. "Yo, superstar," he said as I slid into the booth. "Heard you're out here running the show at that fancy company. When you gonna hire me?" I laughed, snagging a piece of cornbread. "Soon as you learn to wear a suit, Jalen." He clutched his chest, mock offended. "A suit? Nah, this is my brand. Authenticity, baby. We bantered for a while, the cornbread melting in my mouth, bringing back memories of Granny Ruth's kitchen. But Jalen's eyes sharpened as he leaned forward, his voice dropping. For real though, Maya. How you holding up? You look like you're carrying the world. I sighed, picking at a crumb. It's a lot. Granny's sick, works a pressure cooker, and people keep acting like I don't deserve my spot. Like I'm only here because of some diversity checkbox. Jalen's jaw tightened. That's their problem, not yours. You're killing it, but... He hesitated, his gaze searching mine. You sure you're not losing yourself in this game? I see you out here with that flat-ironed hair, working till you drop. Who are you doing it for? His words hit like a punch, echoing the doubts I'd been shoving down. I thought about high school, when kids mocked my curls, calling them unprofessional or wild. I'd started straightening my hair in college, thinking it made me look more put together for internships. Now it was just part of my routine, like brushing my teeth. But was it me, or was it a mask? I'm doing it for me, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. For Granny, for everyone who said I couldn't. I gotta prove them wrong. Jalen leaned back, his expression soft but serious. You don't gotta prove nothing to nobody, Maya. You're enough, always have been. He paused, then added quieter. You know I've always seen that, right? The air shifted, and I realized what he was saying. Jalen and I had been friends forever, but there'd been moments, late-night study sessions, long talks over cheap beer, where I'd felt a spark. I'd always brushed it off, too focused on my goals to entertain it. But now, with his eyes on me, warm and steady, I felt a pang of something I couldn't name. Jalen, I started, but he waved a hand, breaking the tension. Don't worry, I ain't trying to complicate your life, he said with a half-smile. Just don't forget who you are, eh? You're Maya Thompson, not some corporate clone. I nodded, my throat tight. Thanks, Jalen. For the cornbread. And everything. We hugged as we parted ways, his arms lingering a second longer than usual. I walked home through the Atlanta night, the city lights blurring as I wrestled with his words. Who was I becoming? And why did I feel like I was fighting a battle I couldn't win? Back at work, the pressure didn't let up. The campaign was a success, but now the expectations were sky high. I was working longer hours, skipping meals, my life a blur of spreadsheets and meetings. Lauren kept up her subtle digs, and the whispers about special treatment didn't stop. I overheard a coworker in the elevator say, "She's probably got the CEO in her pocket." I wanted to scream, to tell them I'd earned every inch of my place, but I kept my head down, letting my work speak for me. Ethan was a constant presence, but always at a distance. He'd show up at my presentation standing in the back, his eyes following my every move. I'd catch him watching, and it was like the room shrank, just me and him, a silent conversation I didn't understand. Once, after a meeting, I found a leather-bound notebook on my desk, filled with articles on community-focused marketing. The handwriting on the bookmark, neat, slanted, looked suspiciously like Ethan's. I traced the ink with my finger, my heart doing that annoying flip again. Why was he doing this? And why couldn't I stop thinking about him? I got my answer, or part of it, at a company networking event a week later. The rooftop bar was all glitz, twinkling lights, clinking glasses, Atlanta's skyline stretching out like a promise. I was nursing a ginger ale trying to blend in when Ethan appeared beside me, his sleeves rolled up, a glass of bourbon in his hand. "You don't seem like the schmoozing type," he said, his voice low, a hint of a smile tugging at his lips. I laughed, surprised. "Not really. I'm more of a get the work done and go home kind of girl," he nodded, leaning against the railing, his gaze on the city. "Why marketing?" he asked, out of nowhere. "You could have done anything. Why this?" I hesitated, caught off guard. Growing up,
I watched Granny Ruth clip coupons, stretch every dollar to keep us afloat. I wanted to create campaigns that speak to people like her, people who don't get seen. Marketing's about telling stories, and I want to tell the ones that matter. He turned to me, his eyes intense, like he was memorizing every word. You remind me of someone, he said softly. Someone who never got her shot, but deserved it more than anyone. I wanted to ask who, but the air felt heavy, charged. Who do you see when you look at me? I asked instead, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer right away, just held my gaze, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. Someone who's going to change things, he said finally. Someone worth seeing. He walked away before I could respond, leaving me standing there, my ginger ale forgotten, my heart pounding. I didn't know what to make of him, of the way he seemed to see through me, past the armor I'd built to survive this world. Was he just a boss recognizing talent, or was there something more? And why did I want there to be? That night, I stood in my bathroom staring at my reflection. My straightened hair hung limp, a stark contrast to the curls I remembered from childhood. I thought about Jalen's words, about Granny Ruth's pride in our heritage, about the girl I'd been before I decided I had to fit in. On impulse, I grabbed a bottle of curl cream from under the sink, one I hadn't touched in years. I worked it through my hair, watching the coils spring back, wild and alive. I stepped back, studying myself. The curls framed my face like a crown, just like Granny used to say. For the first time in a long time, I felt like me. Not the corporate version, but Maya, the girl who dreamed big despite the odds. I smiled, but it faded as I thought about work, about Lauren, about the whispers. Could I really show up like this, unapologetically myself? And if I did, would Ethan still see me the same way? I turned off the light, the question hanging in the air like a challenge. I didn't have the answer yet, but I was starting to realize I couldn't keep running from it. The morning of the biggest presentation of my career, I was a wreck. My stomach was in knots, my curls, finally free after years of flat ironing, bounced nervously as I paced my cubicle. The campaign I'd been leading was up for a major client, a tech giant worth millions, and this pitch was make or break. I'd spent weeks perfecting every slide, every statistic, every word. My team was counting on me, Miss. Carter was watching, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew Ethan Caldwell would be there, his eyes on me like always. I double-checked my laptop, my notes, my backup USB. Everything was ready. I smoothed my blazer, took a deep breath, and headed to the conference room. The space was buzzing when I walked in, execs chatting, the client's reps in sharp suits flipping through our handouts. Lauren Mitchell was there, of course, sitting near the front with a smile that screamed trouble. I ignored her, focusing on setting up my presentation. This was my moment, and I wasn't about to let her rattle me. I was halfway through connecting my laptop to the projector when the screen froze. I clicked, restarted, clicked again. Nothing. My heart sank as the room started to murmur. "Everything okay, Maya?" Ms. Carter asked, her tone polite but edged with impatience. "Just a sec," I said, forcing a smile as I frantically rebooted. The laptop whirred, then went black. Dead. No backup. No recovery. Nothing. I felt the blood drain from my face, my career flashing before my eyes. Months of work. Gone. The client was watching. Lauren was smirking, and I was about to crash and burn. "Maya." Ethan's voice cut through my panic, calm but firm. I looked up, and there he was in the doorway, holding a sleek laptop. "Use mine." I blinked, my brain struggling to catch up. "Mr. Caldwell, Take it," he said, placing the laptop on the table. His fingers brushed mine as he handed it over, a fleeting touch that sent a jolt through me despite the chaos. "You've got this," I nodded, too stunned to argue, and opened his laptop. The desktop was clean, almost too clean, but there, right in the center, was a file labeled Thompson Pitch Final. I clicked it, and my entire presentation loaded. Not just my original slides, but better. The graphics were sharper, the data points tighter, and there were new market insights I hadn't had access to. My jaw dropped. How the hell? There was no time to question it. I launched into the pitch, my voice shaky at first, but gaining strength. The room leaned in, the client's reps nodding as I walked them through the campaign. By the end, they were clapping. Ms. Carter was beaming, and the lead client shook my hand, saying, "This is exactly what we needed. You've got a deal." The room emptied out, but I stayed behind, staring at Ethan's laptop, my mind racing. This wasn't just a save, it was a miracle. And miracles didn't happen without a reason. I opened the file's properties, my hands trembling, and saw the last edit was made by E. Caldwell at 2 a.m. that morning. I dug deeper, finding a hidden folder labeled M. Thompson. Inside were notes, pages of them, about my proposals, my ideas, my potential. One comment, scrawled in Ethan's neat handwriting, read, "She sees what we've missed. She's the future." My breath caught. Ethan hadn't just saved my pitch. He'd been watching me, studying me, shaping my path for months. The book, the cardiologist, the opportunities. It was him, all along. I felt a mix of gratitude and fury. Why hadn't he told me? What was his game? I marched to his office, my curls bouncing with every step, my heart pounding. His assistant, Tasha, tried to stop me. "He's in a meeting, Maya. I need to see him," I said, my voice sharp. I knocked once and pushed the door open, not waiting for permission. Ethan was alone, standing by the window, his back to me, the Atlanta skyline sprawling behind him. He turned, surprise flickering across his face. "Maya," he said, his voice calm but curious. "Everything okay?" I held up his laptop, my hands shaking. "What is this?" I demanded. "The pitch, the notes, the folder with my name on it? You've been pulling strings this whole time, haven't you?" He didn't flinch, just gestured to a chair. "Sit. Let's talk." I stayed standing, too wired to sit. "No. I want answers. Why are you doing this? The book, the doctor for my granny, the promotions? Why?" He moved closer, stopping a few feet away, his eyes searching mine. "Because I see you," he said simply. "That first day, when you presented your proposal, I saw someone with fire, someone who could change things. I wanted to give you a chance to shine, not because I pity you, but because you deserve it." I shook my head, my anger mixing with something softer, something I didn't want to name. "You should have told me. I thought I was earning this on my own, but now I find out you've been, orchestrating it." "Not orchestrating," he said, his voice low, intense, clearing obstacles. "You earned every win, Maya. I just made sure the path was open." I laughed, bitter. "And what do you get out of it? A pat on the back for being a hero? Or is this some kind of power trip?" His jaw tightened, and for the first time, I saw a crack in his calm. "You think I'm doing this for me?" he asked, stepping closer. "I grew up with nothing, Maya. My mom worked herself to death for me, and I couldn't save her. When I saw you, fighting the same fight she did, I couldn't stand by and do nothing. But I didn't want you to think I was using you." The air felt heavy, electric. I could smell his cologne, faint and woodsy, and see the tension in his shoulders. "Then why not just talk to me?" I asked, my voice softer now. "Why hide it?" He ran a hand through his hair, his eyes dropping to the floor. "Because I've been in rooms where men like me abuse their power. I didn't want you to see me that way. And—" He hesitated, his gaze lifting to mine, raw and unguarded. because you reminded me of her. But you're also you, and that scares me. My breath hitched. The room felt too small, his words too big. I wanted to push him away, to hold on to my anger, but the vulnerability in his eyes was unraveling me. "What do you mean, I scare you?" I whispered. He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him. "I mean, I can't stop thinking about you," he said, his voice rough. "Your passion, your strength, the way you light up a room. I've tried to stay professional, to give you space, but it's killing me." My heart was a drum in my chest, loud and insistent. I should have walked away, but my feet wouldn't move. Instead, I dropped my notes, the papers scattering across the floor. We both knelt to pick them up, our hands brushing as we reached for the same sheet. The touch was electric, a spark that lit up every nerve. I looked up, and his face was inches from mine, his eyes dark with something that mirrored my own longing. "Ethan," I said, my voice barely audible. "I don't want to mess this up," he murmured, his thumb grazing my wrist. "But I can't pretend I don't feel this." Time slowed, the world narrowing to the space between us. I could feel his breath, see the pulse in his neck, hear the faint hum of the city outside. My body leaned toward him, drawn like a magnet, but fear clawed at me. He was my boss, a billionaire, a man who could upend my life with a single word. I pulled back, standing abruptly, my hands shaking. "I need to think," I said, grabbing my notes and the laptop. I can't do this right now." He stood, his expression a mix of regret and resolve. "Take all the time you need," he said. "I'm not going anywhere." I left his office, my legs unsteady, my mind a storm. I didn't know what to feel, grateful, betrayed, or something else entirely. All I knew was that Ethan Caldwell had seen me, truly seen me, and it was both a gift and a danger. Back at my cubicle, the high from the pitch felt like a distant memory. Lauren's voice echoed through the office, loud enough for me to hear from the break room. "I mean, it's impressive, but you have to wonder how she got that laptop at the last minute. Convenient, right?" I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. The whispers were louder now, the stares sharper. By lunch, I overheard 2 co-workers by the copier, one saying, "She's probably sleeping her way to the top. Classic move." The other laughed, and I felt like I'd been punched. I wanted to storm over, to tell them I'd worked harder than anyone. But I couldn't. Not without proving Lauren right, without giving them more fuel. I called Granny Ruth that night, needing her wisdom to anchor me. She was home from the hospital, her voice stronger, but still laced with that familiar warmth. "Maya, baby, what's got you so worked up?" she asked after I rambled about work. I sighed, curling up on my couch, a glass of sweet tea sweating on the coffee table. "It's everything, Granny. The campaign's going great, but people keep saying I don't deserve it. And there's this guy, my boss. He's been helping me, but I don't know what he wants." Granny chuckled, low and knowing. "Sounds like he sees you, baby. That's rare. But you gotta ask yourself, what do you want? Love ain't about fireworks all the time. It's about someone who clears the path so you can run your race." I thought about Ethan, about the notes, the laptop, the way his touch had set me on fire. "What if it's a mistake?" I asked. "What if I lose everything?" "Then you build again," she said, her voice fierce. "You're a Thompson, Maya. We don't break. But don't let fear keep you from something real." I hung up, her words ringing in my ears. I looked at my reflection in the dark window, my curls framing my face like a halo. I was proud of them, proud of who I was becoming. But Ethan, he was a risk I wasn't sure I could take. The next day, I walked into work with my head high, my curls bouncing, my armor a little stronger, but the whispers followed me.
and Lauren's smug smile was waiting in the next meeting. I knew the fight wasn't over. Not with her, not with the doubters, not with my own heart. Ethan had opened a door I couldn't close, and I had to decide whether to step through or slam it shut. The air in the Caldwell Innovations office felt like it was charged with static, like a storm was about to break. I walked through the halls, my curls bouncing, my chin up, but every step was a battle. The whispers had turned into a roar. Lauren Mitchell's subtle jabs had spread like a virus, and now everyone seemed to have an opinion about me. By Monday morning, I overheard two guys in the elevator, their voices low, but not low enough. "She's got the CEO wrapped around her finger," one said. "Bet that's why she got the campaign." The other snickered, and I stared at the floor, my face burning, wishing I could disappear. It wasn't just the office gossip anymore. Last week, someone had leaked a photo of me and Ethan leaving a client meeting together, his hand brushing my elbow as we stepped into an Uber. It was innocent. Work, nothing more. But the tabloids didn't care. By Friday, headlines were screaming, "Caldwell's new flame, junior analyst or corporate climber." One article called me a small-town opportunist. Another hinted I was using diversity quotas to sleep my way to the top. The words cut deeper than I wanted to admit, each one a reminder of every time I'd been told I didn't belong. I tried to focus on the campaign, pouring myself into spreadsheets and ad revisions, but the noise was deafening. My colleagues' stares followed me, some curious, some hostile. Lauren was in her element, dropping comments in meetings like, "It's great to see such close collaboration at the top." Her smile was all teeth, and I wanted to scream. I'd worked harder than anyone, stayed later, pushed further, but all they saw was a black girl who'd lucked into favor. The worst part? I was starting to doubt myself. Ethan's notes, his laptop, his quiet support, they'd felt like a lifeline, but now they were a weight. Had I earned my place? Or was I just a project for him? A way to feel good about helping someone like me? The thought made my stomach churn, and I hated how it twisted the memory of his touch, his words in his office, the way he'd looked at me like I was everything. I needed clarity, so I drove to Alabama that weekend to see Granny Ruth. She was home, weaker but still fierce, her kitchen smelling of cornbread and greens. I sat at her table, my hands wrapped around a mug of coffee, and spilled everything. The rumors, the headlines, Ethan. She listened, her eyes sharp, her braids pulled back in a neat bun. "Sounds like you're carrying a lot, baby," she said, her voice steady. "But let me tell you something. Back in the 60s, when I marched in Selma, folks called us every name in the book, said we were troublemakers, said we didn't know our place, but we kept going because we knew who we were. You know who you are, Maya?" I looked at her, my throat tight. I thought I did. But now, I don't know. What if they're right? What if I'm only here because of him? Granny reached across the table, her hand strong despite its tremble. "You listen to me. You got that campaign because you're brilliant, not because some man handed it to you. As for this Ethan fella, if he's helping you, it's because he sees what I see, a woman who's gonna change the world. But you gotta decide what you want, not what they think you should want." I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. What if I mess it up? What if I let him in and it all falls apart? She smiled, her eyes crinkling. "Then you pick up the pieces and keep going. You're a Thompson, Maya. We don't break. But don't let fear steal something real. Love's worth the risk, if it's the right kind." I drove back to Atlanta with her words echoing in my head, but the weight didn't lift. If anything, it got heavier. Monday morning, I walked into the office to find a new email from HR. A formal complaint had been filed, alleging inappropriate favoritism in my promotion. It didn't name Ethan, but it didn't have to. Lauren's fingerprints were all over it, and the timing couldn't have been worse. We had a board meeting that afternoon to review the campaign's progress, and now I was walking in under a cloud. The boardroom was a pressure cooker, execs in suits, the client's reps on video call, and Ethan at the head of the table, his face unreadable. I presented the campaign's latest numbers: 30% engagement growth, record-breaking social media reach. The room should have been cheering, but the atmosphere was tense, the HR complaint hanging like a guillotine. Lauren sat across from me, her expression smug, her pen tapping like a countdown. When I finished, an older board member, Mr. Hargrove, cleared his throat. "Impressive results, Ms. Thompson," he said, his tone clipped. "But there's been concern about how you secured this role. We need to ensure our processes are above reproach." My heart stopped. The room went silent, every eye on me. I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could, Ethan stood, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "With all due respect, Mr. Hargrove," he said, his tone calm but steel-edged, "Maya Thompson earned this role through her work. Her proposal was selected because it was the best, not because of favoritism. I've watched her lead this campaign with vision and grit, and our numbers prove it. If anyone has doubts, they can review her data, her hours, her results. She's not just meeting expectations, she's redefining them." The room was stunned into silence. My chest tightened, a mix of shock and gratitude washing over me. Ethan's eyes met mine, steady and fierce, and for a moment it was just us, the rest of the world fading away. He wasn't just defending me. He was staking his reputation on me, in front of everyone. Mr. Hargrove shifted, clearly uncomfortable. "Of course, Ethan. We'll review the matter. Ms. Thompson, keep up the good work." The meeting moved on, but I barely heard it. My mind was spinning, Ethan's words replaying like a song. He'd seen me, believed in me, and now he'd put it all on the line. But the victory was bittersweet. Lauren's glare burned into me, and I knew this wasn't over. The board might back off, but the rumors wouldn't. And the media was still circling. After the meeting, I lingered in the boardroom, gathering my notes, needing a moment to breathe. Ethan stayed too, closing his laptop, his movements deliberate. The door clicked shut behind the last exec, leaving us alone. "You didn't have to do that," I said, my voice low, my eyes on the table. "Defend me like that." He stepped closer, his presence filling the room. "Yes, I did," he said. "You don't deserve this crap, Maya. You're the real deal, and I'm done letting people tear you down." I looked up, his words cracking something open inside me. "Why?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Why do you care so much?" He crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping just short of me, his eyes dark with emotion. "Because you're not just my employee," he said, his voice rough. "You're the woman who's been in my head since the day I met you. Your fire, your heart, the way you fight for what's right, it's everything. I tried to stay away, to keep it professional, but I can't anymore." My breath caught, my body humming with the weight of his words. I should have stepped back, should have remembered the rumors, the stakes. But I couldn't. Not with him looking at me like I was the only thing that mattered. "Ethan," I whispered, "this could ruin us." "Let it," he said, his voice fierce. "I'd rather lose everything than lose you." The air crackled, and before I could think, I was moving, or maybe he was, and our lips crashed together. The kiss was fire, urgent, hungry, a release of months of tension. His hands cupped my face, his thumbs brushing my cheeks, and I melted into him, my fingers gripping his shirt. I could taste the bourbon on his breath, feel the heat of his skin, hear the soft groan in his throat. It was everything I'd been afraid of, everything I'd wanted, and it set my soul ablaze. I pulled back, gasping, my heart racing. "I don't know if I can do this," I said, my voice shaky, "but I want to try." He smiled, a real smile,
The kind that reached his eyes. "Then we'll figure it out," he said, his forehead resting against mine. "Together." We stood there, wrapped in each other, the city humming outside, the world waiting to tear us apart. But in that moment, I didn't care. I'd found something worth fighting for, and I wasn't letting go. The kiss changed everything, but it didn't stop the storm. By the next morning, the tabloids had a new angle. Caldwell's risky romance, is he betting the company on love? The HR complaint was still looming, and Lauren was relentless, cornering me in the break room with a smirk. "Bold move, Maya," she said, stirring her coffee. "But you know what they say about playing with fire." I squared my shoulders, my curls framing my face like armor. "I'm not playing," I said, my voice steady. "And neither is he." She raised an eyebrow, but I walked away, my head high. I was done hiding, done letting her or anyone else define me. But the doubt lingered, gnawing at me. Could I trust Ethan's feelings? Could I balance love and ambition without losing myself? I called Jalen that night, needing his perspective. He was back in Birmingham, working on a youth program, but he answered on the first ring. "Yo, Maya, you good?" he asked, his voice warm. I told him everything, the kiss, the headlines, the complaint. He listened, quiet for once, then sighed. "Look, I'm gonna be real with you. I always hoped you'd see me the way you see him, but I want you happy. If this guy's the one, go for it. But make sure he's worth it, eh? You're too dope to settle." I smiled, tears pricking my eyes. "Thanks, Jalen. You're the best." "Always," he said, and I could hear his grin. "Now go be the badass I know you are." I hung up, feeling lighter but still scared. Ethan and I were standing on a cliff, and one wrong step could send us crashing. But as I looked at my reflection, my curls wild and free, I knew I wasn't the same girl who'd walked into this tower months ago. I was Maya Thompson, and I was ready to fight for my career, my identity, and maybe, just maybe, for love. A year later, I stood in the heart of Atlanta, the sun dipping low, casting a golden glow over the city's skyline. The air smelled of summer, grilled corn from a nearby food truck, magnolias from the park across the street. I was in a conference center, my curls piled high in a proud updo, my red dress hugging my curves like a declaration. Tonight was the launch of the Community Impact Hub, my dream project at Caldwell Innovations, a division I'd built from the ground up to provide marketing and business resources to Black-owned businesses and underserved communities. The room was packed. Entrepreneurs, community leaders, even Granny Ruth, sitting in the front row with a smile that could outshine the sun. I took the stage, my heart steady, my voice clear. "This hub isn't just about business," I said, scanning the crowd. "It's about seeing people, really seeing them, and giving them the tools to build their dreams. We've already helped launch 50 small businesses, from bakeries to tech startups, and we're just getting started." The applause was thunderous, and I felt it in my bones, a validation of everything I'd fought for. I caught Ethan's eye in the back, his quiet smile anchoring me. He was there, as always, not stealing the spotlight, but lifting me up in his own way. This moment was mine, but it was ours too, a testament to the path we'd carved together. It hadn't been easy. A year ago, I'd been standing on a cliff's edge, my career teetering under the weight of rumors, media scrutiny, and my own doubts. The HR complaint had fizzled out after Ethan's defense in the boardroom, with no evidence to support it. But the tabloids and office gossip had lingered. Lauren Mitchell had doubled down, spreading whispers until she overplayed her hand, accusing another colleague of unfair advantages. That got her a one-way ticket to HR, and last I heard, she'd left Caldwell for a smaller firm. I didn't wish her ill, but I wasn't shedding tears either. The media had been tougher. Headlines kept churning,
painting me as everything from a gold digger to a diversity hire. But Ethan and I faced it head on. We kept our relationship private at first, letting my work speak for itself. The Community Impact Hub was my answer to the noise, a project that proved I was here for more than a paycheck or a man. When the Hub's first success stories hit the news, a Black-owned bookstore thriving, a tech app by a young Latina coder going viral, the headlines shifted. Maya Thompson, the visionary behind Caldwell's community revolution, one read. I framed it not for ego, but as a reminder. I was enough. Ethan and I had taken things slow, just like he'd promised. Our first real date was a quiet dinner at a hole-in-the-wall soul food spot, where we laughed over fried catfish and talked about everything, his childhood in foster care, my dreams of making Granny Ruth proud, the music we loved. He was a jazz guy. I was all about neo-soul. Those early days were a dance, balancing professional boundaries with the pull we felt. He'd restructured the company, so I reported to the COO, not him, ensuring no one could cry favoritism. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest, and that was enough. 6 months in, we went public. The tabloids had a field day, but by then, our foundation was solid. My colleagues saw my work, 80-hour weeks, campaigns that broke records, the Hub's early wins. The whispers faded, replaced by respect. Tasha, Ethan's assistant, pulled me aside one day, her gold hoops glinting. "Girl, you did that," she said, grinning. "They tried to tear you down, but you built something bigger." Jalen Brooks, my best friend, was another story. After his confession about his feelings, I'd worried things would get weird, but Jalen was Jalen. Loyal, real, the brother I never had. He came to Atlanta for the Hub's launch, rocking a blazer over his Stay Woke tee, and gave me a bear hug that lifted me off the ground. "You're out here changing lives, Maya," he said, his voice thick. "I'm proud of you." I hugged him back, my eyes misty. "Couldn't have done it without you, Jalen. You kept me grounded." He grinned, nudging me. "Just don't forget the little people when you're running the world, eh?" The night of the Hub's launch, after the speeches and handshakes, Ethan found me outside the conference center, leaning against a railing, the city lights sparkling below. He was in a tailored suit, but his tie was loose, his sleeves rolled up, the way I liked him best. "You were incredible tonight," he said, his voice warm. "This city's lucky to have you." I smiled, my heart full. "We're lucky to have each other," I said, meaning it. "None of this would have happened without you." He shook his head, stepping closer. "You're wrong. This is you, Maya. I just cleared a few hurdles. You ran the race." I looked at him, the man who'd seen me when I felt invisible, who'd fought for me when I doubted myself. "You did more than that," I said softly. "You showed me I could be all of me, curls, dreams, everything, and still win." His eyes softened, and he took my hand, his thumb brushing my knuckles. "You showed me something too," he said. "That it's okay to let someone in, to build something together. I was so used to doing it alone." We stood there, the night wrapping around us, the hum of the city a quiet soundtrack. I thought about Granny Ruth, about her words. "Love's about someone who clears the path so you can run your race." Ethan had done that, not with grand gestures, but with quiet acts, notes on my desk, a laptop in a crisis, a defense that risked his reputation. And I'd done it for him, too, challenging him to open up, to trust that he was more than his wealth or his title. A month later, Ethan took me to a place I never expected, the old iron bridge in my hometown, a rickety span over a creek where I'd played as a kid. It was dusk, the sky streaked with pink and gold, the air thick with the scent of pine and river water. We walked to the middle, the boards creaking under our feet, and he stopped,
turning to me with a look that made my heart skip. "Maya," he said, his voice low, "I've spent my life building things, companies, foundations, walls, but nothing means as much as what we're building together. You make me want to be better, to show up, to be the man you deserve." He pulled a small box from his pocket, and my breath caught. Inside was a simple ring, silver with a single pearl, worn but beautiful. "It was my mom's," he said, his voice rough. "She'd have loved you, Maya. Will you marry me?" Tears spilled down my cheeks, but I was smiling, my heart so full it hurt. "Yes," I whispered, and he slipped the ring on my finger, his hands trembling. We kissed, slow and deep, the world falling away until it was just us. Two people who'd found each other in the quiet spaces. The creek bubbled below, the crickets sang, and I felt Granny Ruth's presence, her pride wrapping around me like a hug. Back in Atlanta, life kept moving. The Community Impact Hub grew, helping over 100 businesses in its first year, from a black-owned coffee shop to a coding academy for teens. I led it with everything I had. My curls a crown, my voice unapologetic. Ethan and I planned a small wedding, just family and close friends, with Jalen as my man of honor, and Granny Ruth giving me away. Her health steady thanks to that anonymous donor I now knew was Ethan. Granny threw a dinner for us after the engagement, her tiny house filled with laughter, jazz on the radio, and plates of fried chicken and peach cobbler. She raised a glass, her eyes shining. "Some folks love you with fireworks," she said. "But the best ones love you by clearing the path, making sure your journey's possible. That's the love that builds kingdoms." I looked at Ethan, his hand in mine, and knew she was right. Our love wasn't loud or flashy. It was steady, rooted in respect, in seeing each other's truest selves. He'd seen me, not as a diversity hire or an ambitious climber, but as Maya, a woman with vision and heart. And I'd seen him, not as a billionaire or a boss, but as Ethan, a man who'd fought his own battles and chosen to fight for me. Looking back, I realized how much we'd both needed to be seen. I'd spent years hiding behind straightened hair and perfect pitches, afraid to be too much, too black, too me. Ethan had hidden behind his wealth, his silence, afraid to let anyone close. But together we'd found something rare, a love that didn't demand we change, that lifted us higher because of who we were. I learned that love isn't always a grand gesture. Sometimes it's a book left on a desk, a laptop in a crisis, a quiet nod in a crowded room. Sometimes it's waiting, patient and steady, until the other person's ready to see you. Granny Ruth said it best. The love that builds kingdoms is the kind that clears the path, that makes space for both of you to shine. So if you're out there feeling unseen, keep going. Your work, your heart, your truth, they matter. And if you're quietly lifting someone up, trust that one day they'll turn around and see you. The most powerful connections start in the quietest moments, when you finally look up and realize someone's been walking beside you all along. If this story of love, grit, and finding your truth hit you in the heart, hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below. Tell me about a time someone saw you, really saw you, or when you realized you were building a kingdom with someone by your side. Let's keep spreading these stories, because you never know who's waiting to feel seen.